David Lightman was a master at computer games. A fast thinker.
Oh, David! Maybe you could tell us who first suggested the idea of reproduction without sex.
Your wife?
Get out, Lightning.
And a promising student
Hi.
at an old game
Hi.
with an electronic twist.
Are those your grades?
Yeah. I don't think that I deserved an F. Do you?
You can go to jail for that.
Only if you're over 18.
This computer company is coming out with these amazing new games in a couple of months.
And I want to play those games.
Wow.
What?
We got something.
He found the right code word to play the game,
We're in.
but it was the wrong computer.
Shall we play a game?
How could I ask you that?
How about global thermonuclear war? Fine.
All right. What the hell? They're trajectory headings for multiple impact re-entry vehicles.
What does that mean?
I don't know, but it's great.
All stations, this is Crystal Palace.
I wonder if I should use my subs.
22 Typhoon-class submarines departing Petropavlovsk.
What in the hell's happening here?
Oh my god.
Shall we play?
I have 7, correction, 8. That's 8 Redbirds. Get on the sack. Tell them to flush the bombers.
Russians are still denying everything, sir.
Who are you working with?
Nobody.
Why don't I believe you?
Overday, we have Soviet missile warning.
Placed under arrest pending indictment for espionage.
Confidence is high. I repeat, confidence is high.
Cobra Dane, is this an exercise?
Negative, this is not an exercise.
Get me the president on the horn.
It's still playing the game. It's gonna start a war.
Close up the mouth.
Is this a game or is it real?
WarGames. Playing soon at a theater near you.
But not really playing soon at a theater near you. Playing in the 80s, early 80s at a theater near you. Hey, welcome back to the VHS Club. I'm Katie, this is Nat, and we are talking about WarGames tonight. We postponed on this one, so we've had lots of time to simmer on this one. Are you feeling ready for this one, Nat?
Yes. So Katie had asked me the other day, she's like, why is there no space in war games? Like, why is it one word? So I looked it up. It's a military term, and a North American military term. So it's a pretty modern military word that is basically simulations of war acts to basically to train your men. It's a training
which is
exercise.
Literally the plot of this movie. So,
yes.
So it works out well. But it really annoyed the English major in me because I was like, space. Really want to put a space. It feels like a typo.
Blame the military.
Yeah.
They spell it without a space.
Spell it without a space. So full disclosure, if you're in the military, we're likely going to mess some stuff up tonight or hurt some feelings. So just move on along. We're talking about pretend/not pretend 1980s-ish military, and with the knowledge that we have. So you'll have to forgive us a little bit. And Doc's not on, so he can't critique us yet. Anyway, he may jump on later into the live chat.
Cannot live fact check us.
He cannot live fact check us yet.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Well, while you take away the plot of this movie, if you are hanging out with us in our live studio audience, yay! I see George and Paul are here. Let us know if you watched this one, what your thoughts are. Type in, join the conversation, and we'll pull in some of your comments and feedback here. If you're like, what the heck? I'm listening to this on Apple Podcasts. What are you talking about? We're talking about the fact that we live record this on YouTube most Thursdays, sometimes Wednesdays, sometimes Fridays on YouTube. So you can always join and hang out in the comments and give your feedback and be part of the show. So you're always welcome to, you're always welcome to come and hang out. But let's dive in, Nat. What do you what is the plot of this movie? This WarGames one word movie. I have my nerdy glasses on. I'm like ready. I'm ready to learn.
So the movie is about a high school kid named David who's sort of underachieving at school because he finds it rather boring. He has a computer in 1983, so obviously from a very well-off family.
Yeah, I had lots of feelings about that. I was like, his room is more expensive than like my whole house if we're like comparing time to time. Like he's got like not just a computer, he's got like a whole, he's got like a lab. He's got like a computer lab in his room.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
So he's really into computers, and he ends up failing his biology test, as does, you know, the cute popular girl in school. And they end up going back to his house after school, and he's like, hey, look, I can change our grades, and that way we won't end up in summer school. And I thought it was really funny. There was this moment when they're going upstairs to his room. She's like, hey, nobody's home? Like, that's weird at like 3:30 in the afternoon after school. And he's like, oh, both my parents work. And it's like, that's wild. Because I'm like, yeah,
how
like,
very 90s of it all. just a little bit before the wave of everyone needs to work. Yeah.
I think it hit in that recession. When was the recession? 85? So like that's when everybody went to work. But still, so it's a little before that time. So I just thought it was so weird. I'm like, right, there used to be stay-at-home parents. I'm like,
they're
not in our lifetime.
They're both working because he's got the world's most expensive computer lab in his room. So it makes a lot of sense that they're both. It turns out that it sounds like she, if I'm remembering correctly from like yesterday when I watched this, she's like a real estate agent or something, right? So she's got like
something like that, yeah.
Yeah, she's like, not that I'm saying that's less of a job, but it feels more like an appropriate like mom job in the 80s in my mind anyway.
But she was working during dinner time, which was very un-80s.
Very true. Yeah.
So, anyway, so he shows her his computer. Not a euphemism, just like his actual computer.
He's actually showing her a computer.
Changes their grades and like jokingly like, you know, books them a ticket for Pan Am, which used to be an airline. Mm-hmm. And he's explaining to her that his computer is, you know, dialing all these different phone numbers in the region because he's looking for somebody who has this new computer game that's supposed to be coming out for Christmas. And he's looking to see if he can find the computer game.
Play it early.
Because it's probably out there. And he's trying to find a computer that has access to this game so he can play it before it comes out. And they stumble across a system, and he's explaining like how to log in and what a backdoor is, which is how to get into a computer program without having to log in officially if you don't have an official login. And they stumble across a system, and he figures out who the inventor of the system is, Dr. Falcon, who worked for the military. He is now deceased, and he was a game player, and he used to create AI, artificial intelligence, where he would play games with computers and teach the computers how to strategize and play these games. Mm-hmm. Obviously, that would be good for military purposes.
Yep.
So he's explaining this all to her and flashes over to NORAD, the North American defense system. That it's a real life thing, though in the premise of the movie, it's not the binational North American.
No Canadians there. What the heck?
No, they deleted Canada from this movie because it would have made it too hard to understand that two nations make up the continent of North America. Whatever.
Yet they did add a really creepy French. I think that they were trying to make him like a French guy. But he didn't really have a French accent, but he was very creepy and inappropriate with a lot of people there. So I feel like they would have benefited from just swapping that character out with like a nice
they could have just put a little Canadian patch on him.
But made him not creepy, like made him actually Canadian. Replace that actor and all of his vibes with someone better. Yeah.
So they see that this, they're explaining, there's these two sort of tech savvy guys that are explaining, hey, we have this new computer program. It's going to replace these people because people involve human error. So if we have to launch missiles, if we're in a situation of war, we don't want the human error factor, so we can replace that with a computer.
Yeah.
The computer is called Whopper, which is super cute. And which is a Burger King burger. It is Burger King.
Yes, Burger King, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm like, I don't really know. I'm like, do we even have a Burger King in Quebec? Probably not. But
I don't think so.
like, it's a movie thing for me. So they replace the manual human system of launching missiles with this computer. So when David and Jennifer access this, what they think is a gaming system, and they decide to play like thermonuclear war games.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Which I love. Like, there's a list of like 30 games, like, and there's like normal games. There's like chess, you know, like fun normal games, and they're like, let's go with thermonuclear war. I mean, I guess that sounds like the most badass of the games, but it was like, oh, okay, we're just gonna go like all the way there to the war option.
Chess is so boring. Let's play war games.
As they drink their tab soda, and they're like, "What do these things mean?" It was like, "Well, those are the missiles." They're just like having fun and making everyone in NORAD just cry, just like
So NORAD doesn't seem to have a single person that knows how this program working apparently, to check to see, like, because what they see on their screens is this is really happening.
Yeah,
you know, the Soviet Union is launching missile attacks on Seattle and Las Vegas. So they're in full, you know, like, they're trying to confirm this, so they're on full alert. They're trying to confirm everything. They've gone from DEFCON 5, which is peace, to DEFCON 4. And creeping up to DEFCON 1.
Yeah.
And I do love, like, kind of near the beginning of the movie, there is one of the nerdy computer guys that's like, guys, it's just a simulation. It's not real. And they're like, and then he disappears. He has no ability to convince these military people who have their heads so far up their own arse that so they kidnap this kid too, like, from his home, because they track him down, which, like, obviously he did do the right things. You know, he was shredding his paper, he unplugged the phone, but then once he plugged his phone back into the computer, the computer dialed him back because it's artificial intelligence. He ends up telling the military, hey, I just thought it was a game, and the computer keeps calling me back because it wants to finish the game, and it's just a game. And they're like, no, that's
no, computers
too
don't
logical.
Make phone calls. Computers can't do that. Yeah.
Your answer is too simple. You must be a Soviet spy. You fit the profile.
Yeah. Yeah.
Matthew Broderick does not fit the profile. Okay. Like, and so basically it's the military trying to figure out if the Soviets are trying to start World War III, and the kid trying to prove that it really is just a game. And in the end, they prove that it's just a game. And they save America from starting World War III with the Russians. And that's the movie.
And I will say, so buckle up, because we've got some thoughts and feelings and some facts. Thoughts, feelings, and facts in this one, so everyone will enjoy. So we 2 weeks ago, we did, or maybe it was even 3 weeks ago, we've taken a couple weeks off, but a couple weeks back we talked about Hackers, so which was about 10-ish years, give or take, later than this one. So this is an earlier iteration. But what I think is really, really interesting is that if you compare the two of these, Hackers, you know, kind of takes this concept of computer hacking, it puts it in this teenage world, it makes it really cool and funky. They really kind of made computer technology seem really accessible. But then the flip side of it is that, you know, you have these kind of, you know, you have the police officers and the FBI and everyone that's involved in kind of stopping this are almost like these like comical bad guys, and they're constantly like bursting into the doors and arresting kids, and like, and the mothers are shocked, and it's like, whereas you compare it against this one, and, you know, and like you said, that, you know, so Matthew Broderick's character David is the, you know, computer genius in this movie. And you're right. Like, he has this lab. He seems to understand what's going on. He does a ton of research. So like, he like initially tries to guess what the password is. He's really just trying to figure out what this computer game is. You know, he thinks it's like a fun game. He's trying to impress the girl. He's trying to impress himself. He's just playing around with the computer, and then and figures out, you know, along the way that, you know, he needs to do this additional research. He like goes to the library because that's what you did in the 80s. There was
I mean,
no like, there was no
that's what
like
hacking
research.
was.
Yeah.
Hacking used to be you had to do like boots on the ground research. You had to go and find passwords and listen to phone calls and find papers or articles that told you about the person so you could try and figure out their password.
Yeah, but it's very
he does all the right
he does all the right things.
Hackers.
It's very pre-hackers. He doesn't seem it's not as
mainstream.
It's not as mainstream. It's not as like fun. It's not as playful. It feels much more believable, even though I think both of them are fairly accurate portrayals of it, especially in the times that they're in. But it's like it is interesting that he's able to do this. And as you said, once so he gets in, he starts this game, they're kind of joking around and playing thermonuclear war, quote unquote. But then he sees a news, segment later and realizes what he's done, and he like immediately unplugs everything. Yeah. He goes to try to get advice.
He does all the right things.
He does all the right things.
Shredding the papers and burning your book scene. Like he did it. He unplugged the telephone cord, ripped it right out of the phone. Yeah.
And then I would say on the flip side, you have, so again, like if I compare it against like Hackers, for example, of which there are lots of other movies we could compare it against, but Hackers is a good example where like, again, you kind of have these like two almost like caricatures a little bit of themselves. Like you have like this group of like teenagers and they're teenagers and hacking is like really cool and they're like incredibly talented at it and there's competition and it's really playful.
A whole underground culture.
And then you have like the police officers who are kind of like frumpy and ridiculous and everything is like very big and grandiose. Yeah. Whereas you have the Noride group, which I agree, they totally, they're completely inept. They're all older. They're very kind of prim and proper. They're totally like, they're totally military, right? Like they're like, they're big and they have like,
there's
systems
no
and they
way a kid is A, doing this or B, telling us the truth.
Yeah, and they had just come off.
It's not their world.
Exactly. And they had just come off this like beginning of the movie where you have a couple of guys who are in like a bunker and they challenged the test, right? So there was like this test where they were supposed to just fire off, some kind of weaponry. They didn't because they were like, oh, I don't know if this isn't. So you have this kind of like the military where they have the technology, but they don't really trust the technology yet, nor should they, based on this movie. But they're not really trusting the technology, and they're kind of trying to think it all through. And then what is the likelihood that according to them, like this huge organization could be infiltrated by a teenager, like just playing.
Back then,
just playing
pretty solid. To be honest. I mean, like again, like the one guy that ran in at the beginning, it's like it's just a simulation, none of it's real. What you're seeing is just it's just a training mode for the program, and they're like, nah, and he's gone for the rest of the movie. Like the one authority there that knew what he was talking about, it's like nobody believed him. So of course they're also not going to believe the kid.
I do also love that they have this Whopper computer, right? They have like this giant computer. It's got like a little bit of a face to it. It's like very like 80s computer, huge,
very
whatever.
Tron-esque.
And they're like. There's like this whole scene where they're like, oh, like, what do we do? We really need to like make this whole process like easier. And we need to take out like the human element because like humans are fallible and they make all these mistakes and we need to be able to move quickly. We're in the middle of the Cold War where like we have all these feelings and facts, I suppose. But you have this guy who's just like, we could use this very expensive giant computer that we have. And they're like, like we invested a ton of money into all of this like game theory research and built this like giant thinks for itself computer. We might as well use it. And it like takes them a little, they're like, we'll talk about that. Like it is an interesting, I don't know. I think this movie does a really fantastic job. So good a job actually that one of like not my favorite fact of this movie, I'll share that later, but one of an incredible fact from this movie is that former President Ronald Reagan actually like saw an early like release of this movie and loved it so much that it actually affected law. Like he created law based on what he saw in the movie, and he referenced it like a number of times in meetings. He like actually paused people and was like, have you all seen WarGames? After they were like, what? And he was like, have you seen WarGames? Because we need to talk about what we should do or not do based on this movie, which I think is just incredible. Like, I think it's incredible.
I really thought was interesting that this movie, I think, was in development in 1976. So, and it was done in 82, 83. So it took a while. And initially it wasn't supposed to be kids that were like the hackers. And because it started to become a thing, they're like, hey, like once we hit the 80s, and they're like, you know what? There's these genius kids that are really into this, and it's becoming almost like a thing that kids are into it, which then turns into, yes, a whole culture of people globally that are into it, especially as teenagers. But I love how it started as early between 76 and 83 that hackers were starting to, that's the like real origin of the subculture, you know, and it's that was really cool because it's something that it changed the script, and it changed and we got a Matthew Broderick movie, yay, and Ali Sheedy, who's badass in this movie. I love her.
Incredible in this movie. I had to pause a couple of times and like turn to Dane and be like, this girl is like in high school, and like she's I just love how, if you think about like kind of stereotypes, at least today, right? Like Matthew Broderick's character, he's like a class clown, but he's also a nerd, but he's not really trying too hard. And she's like the popular girl and highly capable and like beautiful and whatever else. And she's like riding a motorcycle to school in high school. And she's like about to be on TV for like gymnastic stuff that she's doing. And she's just
aerobics class, Katie.
Yeah, aerobics class. Sorry, excuse me, aerobics class. But she's just like comes over and hangs out, and like there's no like, he doesn't seem to be ostracized or kind of like, oh, high roll, he's a kid. Like, even again, if you look at Hackers just 10ish years later, you have like a character who is like out of place, and these characters were like kind of the geeky subculture, and they're trying to find their space in, like in the in among the popular kids, whereas like this school, it was just like, it's fine, like it's fine, he's cool,
nobody would have known about it then, like his classmates probably had no idea what he was doing. So it's like he was whatever he was masking and presenting at school, not what he is at home. I do love in the movie where he, at one point she calls him and she's like, where have you been? Like, have you seen that we're like, did you hear about us on the news? And she's like, I haven't seen you in over a week at school. And I'm like, and his parents are both home.
No, she says his parents are freaking out. So he does, like, he was, so at that point,
his parents are freaking out?
Yeah, he was kidnapped.
No, this was before he got kidnapped.
No, that conversation happens where he's calling from the payphone back to her.
She walks in on him. No. She walks in on him. Like, she jogs over casually to his house, and she meets the dog and the dad.
Okay. Yeah.
And she just goes upstairs, and the dad, like, barely blinks, like, who is this kid, and why does she know where my son's bedroom is? And he's just kind of, like, sipping his coffee. She gets up, he's, like, just in his pants, sitting on, like, his bed, surrounded by papers, trying to do research.
Oh, this is during his research. Got it.
Yeah, before he breaks into the system, and like, she's like, you haven't been to school for over a week. And I'm like, his parents have no clue that he was in
they work full
time.
He
wasn't
there.
What?
They don't have time for that.
Never. And I also love how, like, they just, like, change their grades. I'm like nobody would notice.
No. I guess it depends on how big their school is.
There's no communication between teacher to, I guess the secretary would print out the report card and it got mailed to your home, right? Yeah. So I remember that. Oh, that's weird. Like, you can't just look it up online. I'm like, how do you look up children's grades nowadays?
Yeah, online. Well, they do. They do bring home in their bags like a printout version of it. Okay. So that's still the same as when I was a kid. But you can also look them up online.
Okay. So yeah, but basically, like, there's no like system of communication where like people would notice that these kids change their grades from an F to an A. Wild.
Paul says his parents seem to be oblivious to what was happening around them, except for the trash. Yeah, there's like an entire scene where they're like, "Oh, why are you dealing with the typical parent stuff?"
Because he didn't put the lid on the trash.
Lid on the trash. Yeah.
The dog knocked it over, got in the trash. So.
Yeah, I mean, there is a scene between him and the parents where he shows his report card, which is obviously like edited and fabricated, and they're like, wow, good job. Like they
You
like
did so good. And he's like, did I? It's
I
like,
know
you-
they're like not
you know,
expecting
kid.
him to have done well. They're just kind of like, wow, great. Which again, like begs the question, like again, in a lot of these other movies that happen like in and around this time period, the parents are like, they're like, you know, you're failing out of this class, like, or you're not doing well in this class, or I don't trust you. I'm taking away all of your expensive stuff you have in your house. And in this movie, they're just like, wow, great, you're passing. Excellent. We didn't think you would. Like, it's just, they're just like fine with like, no problem. At no point are we going to like punish you or take away any of your thousands of dollars of equipment you have in your room.
Dear Lord, I couldn't even imagine the cost of it at that time.
No. It's
So
crazy.
one thing I love is that because the military did not listen to him at the beginning, and they did not listen to their IT guy or whoever their programmer, can we imagine for a moment how many millions of dollars they spent in the 80s flying up these F-18s or whatever
moving
they
the
were,
DEF CON to a different level.
Yeah, like to like verify that their radar information was correct. So they're shooting off planes into the air. They're sending out submarines. They're doing all of this like on the ground real stuff. I'm like, how much has anybody ever done a tally on what that would have cost? Because I'm curious.
I think it would be really, really
Like,
funny.
So much
This was
money.
like an OG concept we had for this show, but it would be really funny to do like the like MTV Much Music, which is the Canadian version of MTV version, where they do like those music videos where they like over the music video they have like the bubbles that come up and give like facts. Like I feel like they need like a version of of this movie where they just have like either like a running counter along the bottom that's like the amount of money that the military is just like hemorrhaging as the movie is happening, or just like pop up bubbles that come up that's like, wow, there was another $4 million. Like that would be. Yeah, that would be a fun way to approach this movie with just like the facts that go all along. Yeah, no, they definitely spend like an insane amount of money. And I mean, this movie, like, so a couple of things as it relates to the military. One is that prior to this film had one of the most expensive, at least at the time, the most expensive sets ever designed. So they spent $1 million designing that whole NORAD room, and they had to like. It was way cooler in the movie than it actually was in real life because, again, of the 80s of it all. So it's like, they're like, we need a lot more like flashy lights and cool screens and like things that didn't actually exist in that space. Now it obviously looks pretty badass and cool. And obviously there's way more pictures and availability to see what it looks like versus what we had accessible back in the 80s. But it was really, really expensive to build that entire space and make it like come to life in the way that they did. So it's pretty remarkable that they were able to do that. And again, and also even terms like DEF CON, like no one knew what the heck that was until this movie. This movie,
I learned about that from movies.
Yeah,
so yeah,
this movie created a lot of the not created the terms that this term existed, but it popularized a lot of these terms. Firewall was another term that like was not used popularly at all before this movie. So it really was like in addition to being
even backdoor, like talking about
Backdoor,
computer programs saying backdoor, I'm like, would anybody have ever even imagined that word before this movie came out? Like the average, obviously not the people in this business, you know, but like they brought to pop culture a lot of terminology that wasn't part of pop culture until this movie, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm laughing at Paul's comments. And so Paul says, and the computer was destroyed by tic-tac-toe.
Yes.
Absolutely true.
It really
the
was.
computer could not handle tic-tac-toe. Like parents, it was just like, nah. I just can't.
The artificial intelligence of the computer. So the computer Joshua, I guess the computer was Whopper. And then the artificial intelligence that developed within the computer, the program, was named Joshua. And
after the creator's
Joshua was programmed, after the not deceased, by the way, he was just given a new name to go retire because he knew too much for the military, so they kind of just deceased his real name and gave him all new identity and everything. So the creator's son, his name was Joshua. So, and that was how David got into the computer, was by figuring that out from an article about him. And basically what I'm trying to say is that Joshua, because he's an artificial intelligence, was realizing that, oh, if they shut me off, then I can't speak to David and we can't keep playing the game. So I'm going to find David somewhere else. So if David logged onto another computer, he would try and recognize him and speak to him through a different computer and stuff like this. So the AI was really developing, and he didn't know that you can lose a game. He hadn't learned that games can be won and lost, or not that they can be won and lost, sorry, that sometimes there's no resolution.
There's no resolution.
Like
There's no point in
like,
playing because there's no resolution, which is what tic-tac-toe is literally all about. It's literally all about. There's no way to win unless someone's really not paying attention or is under the age of like 5.
Yeah. So that's why the supercomputer got felled by tic-tac-toe, because he needed to learn that sometimes there's no resolution.
Yeah.
You know, like in a Cold War, nuclear war, and these are situations where we're pretty sure there's not going to be a viable resolution. So let's not do that, world. I love how Katie and I were talking just earlier that all the problems in this movie, sort of like the bigger global issues that they mention in this movie, are literally the same stuff that's in the news today.
Oh, yeah. Don't make me depressed.
World War III. It's like, oh, Russia.
I know, it's so funny. I was reading this really in-depth article about this movie, which I posted in the sources and in the show notes here. So whether you're listening or watching, you can grab it if you want to dive deep, if you want to dive deep into the space. But a lot of what the article was talking about was this movie kind of came up in this era where people were really afraid, right? Like you had the Cold War was still heavily happening. You had people just being really afraid of like the instance of computer automation and of losing jobs to computers that were capable of doing things that humans weren't as good at, right? But we're still there. Like we're still having
that right now.
We're still having these conversations where people are afraid of like what AI can do and certainly it can do a lot in the same way that the technology back then could do a lot. And the kind of theme and moral that comes out of this movie is that, humans are still smarter or more capable than artificial intelligence, even though it can learn and it can come to the solutions. It still needed human assistance to get there, and the humans still needed to make the right decision, which I think is still generally the case. It may not always be, but I think it's still generally the case in today. But yeah, it is interesting kind of that we are still in a space where it's really, really relevant. It kind of this movie actually, in addition to thinking back on hackers, and then we obviously watch Robin of Locksley, which is a hacking movie, but not in the same league as this one, but still interesting. But the one that I thought of a lot, which is like one of our OG favorites that we need to redo at some point because everyone keeps asking for like more of this, is Pump Up the Volume, right? Like, yeah, it felt really similar in many ways to that movie, in this like world where you had this like guy that was like challenging kind of the system. Obviously the character from Pump Up the Volume is much more like outrageous and kind of challenging than Matthew Broderick's characters in this movie, but there were a lot of similarities I think between that one and this one as well. Yeah,
I wanted to say, and come with me on this journey, guys. This is a remake. WarGames is a remake of the 1957 movie The Desk Set, starring Katharine Hepburn and Spencer Tracy.
Good one. Out of our range for VHS Club, but an amazing one everyone should watch.
But I'm pretty sure. So if you haven't seen that movie, it's basically Katharine Hepburn works at a call center, we'll say. Basically, if you needed to look up the definition of a word or look up something in the encyclopedia, there was like, a 1-800 number that you could call. And you had these people that would just sort of like either know the factoid off the top of their head or go and check the references.
Like an
and
operator,
then yeah. And Spencer Tracy's character he's bringing in a supercomputer, a legitimate actual supercomputer, that's what they even called it in the movie, to replace these women who were the the operators who gave you the information that you were calling to ask about. And the whole, like, it's the same. Like, we're replacing humans with computers, and oh no, we shouldn't do that, and we still need the humans, and nope, the computer can do it all, but something goes slightly wrong, so now we need both of us to live in harmony.
Yeah.
I mean, that movie is much funnier than WarGames because it's not setting us to war with Russia. This one was a lot scarier on that front, but
Yeah, absolutely. We need to talk about a few things, and Paul and Val have pointed out a couple of them. So there are some, like, in at least my opinion, hilarious moments in this movie. So the first is, and Paul points out brilliantly, I love the fact that they were giving tours in NORAD. It's like one of the most secure places in the country, and they're just like, as Val said, lots of people walking around the room. Like, where are you going? Like,
are you part of the high school group? Like, are you lost? Like, not a prisoner that was locked in a room, but
not even just like, are there tours, but like they're in the middle of like a crisis, and at no point are they like, well, we're changing DEFCON, so maybe we should send the tour group home. They're just like, that's fine. Like, let's move like, they kind of speed it up a little bit, but they don't like get them out of there quickly. Like they're like, maybe we'll just like end this a little bit early, but they don't seem to be too panicked about it. Like, yeah, which is absolutely wild.
Also, one of our favorite things, both Katie and I, was at the end of the movie where they're having the countdown, because now it's going to be like thermonuclear meltdown, right? Russia's going to attack North America.
It's like the final like intense moment of the movie. Yeah.
And then there's the countdown, and it's like, we all know it as a computer countdown. Like in these situations in modern movies, it's like 10 seconds remaining. And then it flashes. It's literally this woman who's just super chill. She's just like, 10 seconds remaining until total destruction. 9 seconds remaining. And like, they're all freaking out in the room, and they're trying to contact all the bases to say like, we can't confirm, so we can't take action, and we know you're probably all gonna die, but we're with you. And it's like, and she's just like, 5 seconds until like, iconic. Like, best role in the movie.
She is hands down my favorite person, and I literally like, I wanted so badly, I know it's not a comedy, but like the airplane like slapstick humor part of me wanted so desperately for the general to turn around and be like, Barb, can you not right now? Like, I'm trying to talk to everyone, and we're in full panic. Like, we don't need the countdown.
Trying to
like,
call through on landlines.
Yeah, trying to call through a landline to like tell everyone that they may or may not die, and she's just like, 10 seconds, 8 seconds. Like, it was just glorious. That was amazing. And then one of my favorite moments, and Dane pointed this out to me, which I actually didn't, again, I say this almost every episode, but I'm not even kind of observant, so I don't notice hardly anything. But I did catch this one, is that Matthew Broderick and Sheedy are like, in the last minutes of this movie, that they have found the previously thought to be dead inventor of this computer, the father to Joshua, the father of this like AI technology, and they've convinced him to come back from this like isolated island that he's on to come and help them. And there is like, everything is like in full panic mode. NORAD is like shutting down. It's like, it's in a mountain. Like,
they're going into full lockdown.
They're going into full lockdown. So they're like, they like are peeling out in this Jeep. The Jeep like crashes through the gate, flips over. They jump out. They're running through. They like make it to like the door. There's like a huge like vault door that's closing. They get through the door with like seconds to spare. They're running through the building to try to get to like this NORAD room, expensive set.
Yeah, the war room.
The war room, right? They get all the way there, and then you see like, the scene kind of continues, and they're having like this back and forth conversation, and then you look down, and they're all wearing like visitor badges. And you're like,
but
what?
Like, when did that happen?
What?
Like
again, Barb is just like, she was just like in the middle of the countdown. She's like, 10 seconds. Here are your visitor badges.
Like, Barb, I love you, Barb. Oh God, I wish her character name was really Barb, but she's probably just like Countdown Woman or uncredited.
In my mind, she'll always be Barb. She's a Barb. Yeah, she's a get it done kind of person. Some people might call her a Karen, but I think she's more of a Barb.
She's definitely.
I think she's more of a Barb. And then the other point
Karens
in that,
Katie, it's
true. It's true. Except for Doc's Karen, she's fantastic, so she's the exception to the rule. But I will say that the other amazing moment in that exact same scene, which this one I didn't spot, but Dane pointed out to me, is Matthew Broderick and Ali Sheedy's characters are running and they're holding hands. He's like, why? Why every action movie is like the couple holding hands while running? Like the worst possible idea. Like we are in a rush, guys. Like we're in a rush here, and they're just like, we're in love. Like, but we're upset and we're trying to get there, but we're in love.
Like that would just trip me up. You know, like I'd be like, "Kate, you hold your own hand because I need to run for my life." Like when I'm in fight or flight, I'm a fight. Like I'm not going to be coddling somebody else.
Yeah. I learned from my trip to Italy that that in these kinds of running situations, of which I had to do in the airport to catch a connecting flight, that I would be dead. Like if this was Dane and I in this scene, we would not be holding hands because Dane doesn't believe in that when running, as we just said. But I would be like passed out on the floor, gasping for air, and Dane would be like in NORAD solving the problem. Like I'd be like, I'm just gonna wait. I'm not Ali Sheedy. I'd be like, I'm gonna wait here. You go on.
Go save the world.
Go save
I'm
the
going
world.
to, try and not have my lungs or heart explode.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay, we need to call this out because I did not notice this and Paul did, and it's fantastic. So Paul says, to the right of the launch room where the guys with the missile launch keys were, there's a placard that reads, anyone urinating in this area will be discharged. That's incredible, Paul. I totally did not notice that, and I will have to go back and rewatch just for that one moment. That's incredible. Oh my goodness. Absolutely awesome.
That's really fun.
Absolutely awesome. Other favorite moments. Well, some fun facts. Excuse me. Some fun facts in this movie. So I was saying to Nat before we jumped on, because it was 1983 when this movie came out, so it was filmed earlier than that. No one had any typing skills, so because no one had home computers, that like wasn't a thing.
Typewriters and keyboards are not the same skill set. I just a new vintage typewriter.
Mm-hmm. A new to me vintage
I mean,
typewriter.
it's new to me. It's been existing since the 60s. But I just got a typewriter, and I'm like, instead of just like a nice little even like tick 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 tick.
No, you have to like slam the keys. Yeah,
clack, clack. It's like a full arm movement. I'm like, oh, I do not have any muscle memory to this. So I can see how going from typewriters to computers, it's a no.
No one was able to type, and not only could they not type, but they like if they pulled it off, it was insanely slow, and they were just making countless mistakes. Like nothing was spelled correctly, so they ended up actually like coding and programming the computers to just whatever anyone typed, they would just pull up what they needed it to say on the computer, because they were like, nah, we're good. Like with the whole time, you just type whatever you want, because we'll just put up whatever you show. So I thought that was kind of awesome. And they also gave Matthew Broderick a couple of arcade machines because they needed him to like know how to use technology. I was like, well, that's a win. I mean, I hope that he still has some of those, because that's incredible.
That would be
absolutely
amazing.
Incredible. Oh my goodness, everyone's picking up all these awesome moments. See, I'm not observant, so I love these. Everyone will have to keep up. Val says that during the motorcycle scene, Ali Sheedy's hair was down when she picked him up and then was in a ponytail when they were going down the road. What? Yeah. How? Yeah, it is amazing like how many of those kind of movie mistakes get left in. I wish that I was the person that could pick those up. Dane is really good at that. Nat's pretty good at it. I'm like not. I don't know. I'm like in the moment. I'm like, look at her. She looks amazing on a motorcycle.
I love it's like, riding a motorcycle. Whenever a girl is like riding or anybody with long hair.
Oh yeah.
Like even Thor. I'm like, you're fighting with your hair down. Like, come on. You're going to tie that bucket up out of your face. Like you're going to make mistakes. It's going to get in the way. Like,
I mean, I would, but that's me. I can't handle it.
Like I played a lot of sports as a kid. Never had my hair down once. No once. Ever. While doing any kind of physical activity. Like, still to this day, I will not with you. It's like wearing a wool blanket over your head while trying to exercise. It doesn't happen.
Yeah, it doesn't
except
happen.
for in the movies.
Doesn't happen. Hank says Matthew Broderick was practically a child in this. So he was actually 21 when this movie came out. And this was 3 years before Ferris Bueller's Day Off, which is obviously on our list. And now, you know,
You
as
can see shades of Ferris in this.
you can see shades of Ferris in this. Sad fact, his Matthew Broderick's father, who got him into acting and was himself an actor, actually passed away before this movie came out. So like died during the making of this movie. So he's like, the fact that Matthew Broderick is even kind of Matthew Broderick-y funny in this is kind of impressive, because I think he was having a super hard time during a lot of the filming of this. So, so yeah, that part was kind of sad. But yeah, tons of facts in this movie. So we will not get through all of them in this episode, but it's worth looking it up, because this movie's actually, unlike a lot of its, you know, counterparts, it's insanely accurate. It actually redefined a lot of like the kind of both military and governmental approaches to dealing with, you know, with computers and with technology. It was a smash success at the box office. Like, it had a ton going for it. So it was a really well received, very well put together movie, I think, really.
Yeah. You had some facts about computer use at the time?
Oh yeah. All right. So this one goes is to credit to Dane and our friend Aaron who sent us over this fact, but here, and then for those of you who are listening, we have this fun-filled chart that comes from NBC. You can see the peacock in the corner there, so credit to NBC. This is showing. I had a lot of questions about the internet, as previous movies have called it, but I was like, you know, like, again, we have kind of this character where he's certainly using a phone. He's calling in to access all these different files. And I was like, was there the internet? Like, I know that the internet existed in the early 80s. I'm not doubting that. It came out in the late 60s, basically. But I was like,
October 29th, 1969?
Yeah.
I believe.
Hey, guys, look at you. Live fact checking.
No, that's out of my brain. So let that
nice.
Rolodex might need to be dusted off if somebody wants to double check that.
Someone else can live fact check that for us. But again, for anyone listening, so in 1981, you had approximately 213 computers that were accessing the internet. In 213, that's it, 213 in 1981. And 1989, you had 80,000. 1992, 727,000, and in 94, 2.5 million. So, you know, in this time period, we're looking at between the kind of 213 to 80,000. So again, you know, the concept of kind of like networking computers and like the vague, you know, connection points certainly were there. The internet, the beginning of the internet was there. But I mean, this is, again, a very different movie if you're looking at it from the 80s to the mid 90s when Hackers came out, which was, you know, accessibility to the internet was very
Microsoft
different.
Office came out too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we had Lotus Suites before, which is why we see some good numbers in the late 80s, early 90s. But by the mid 90s, it's when Office kind of took over, not just industrial use, but home use.
Mm-hmm.
Initially the internet was created to compile a very heavy computer program, because these guys were realizing, like, hey, we have this really big computer program, and compiling a program is basically when you're checking to see if there's any like mistakes in your program, like any little bugs or holes or something that needs to be fixed.
Mm-hmm.
And they just couldn't do it on an actual physical computer, so they inadvertently invented the internet. And then it was open sourced up until the phone companies got involved, and I'm still salty about it because technically it's open source.
You should be salty about it. It's
I am. I'm like, how much are we all paying for this? And it's like free information, but anyways.
Yeah, and some people that can't access it, it's an issue. I'm loving all the conversations about typewriters and ink that are happening in our live chat. So again, if you want to be part of this amazing crew, it's usually the same group of folks. We love being able to hang out. So
adore them.
You can join us on YouTube and get your comments in live, but you can also leave comments on the replay or email us if you're listening and you don't want to see our lovely faces.
Talking about printers, I used to love the daisy wheel printers. So it's, if you guys Google it, if you don't know, it's such a, I wish there must be YouTube videos or ASMR about it because it's wonderful. So you have it when it worked, when it didn't jam. So you have your paper and it has all the little holes on the side and it prints everything out. And then you had to tear
So
the
fun
perforated
tearing it
holes
off,
off the edges. Oh my god, that was so satisfying. I still am like, if you got me a pack of like daisy wheel printer paper, I'd be like, yes. It's almost as good as bubble wrap.
Yes, absolutely.
So good. Love that.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we're near the end, so if you're hanging out in the live studio audience, you'll have to let us know how many potatoes you would give this one. Drop those in. If you want to do stars, that's fine. We'll judge you, but we would prefer potatoes. How many potatoes you are gonna give this one? And you know, I think this ends our kind of like mini hackathon technology sweep, because next week we are going to be together hanging out in Stratford, Ontario.
Live in person.
Live
together.
in person. So we are actually going to see a Shakespeare play on the stage in Stratford, which is a huge theater town in Canada. So we're going to be coming to you with the podcast live on Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern. That is today right now is September 7th, 2023. So if you're listening like way in the future, this doesn't really relate to you, but you can hang out and grab the episode. But if you want to be live with us and hanging out in the chat, we're going to be talking about, we're going to switch it up, and we're going to talk about one of our all-time favorite Canadian Shakespeare shows, not a movie, a TV series.
A TV
called
series.
Slings and Arrows.
Series.
Three seasons. Yep.
Seasons,
3 series.
yeah.
If you're British or Canadian, 3 seasons / series.
So confused sometimes.
And just a really good,
is
we're
it
just
a
going to,
season or series?
yeah, we're going to talk generally about it and just hang out and let you know what Stratford is like. And we're going to be in total Shakespeare mode. So if you want something a little bit different from us, you're welcome to come and hang out. If you're like, nah, man, I want to be back in the world of 90s movies, totally fine. Jump ahead to 2 weeks from now, and we'll be back with you with another 90s or early 2000s.
Yeah, if you haven't seen Slings and Arrows, and I know it's available,
it is on Amazon.
I believe on Amazon, and yes, it is. It used to be on Netflix as well. I don't know if it's still there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great show starring Paul Gross, who everybody should recognize from the show Due South, about the Canadian Mountie and Chicago cop pairing up in Chicago to fight crime and always get their man. Incidentally, we are seeing Paul Gross in Stratford next week.
Yeah.
He's playing King Lear.
So if we get
And Katie
arrested
and I
in
are
Canada,
so excited.
it's because we've tried to get on the stage with Paul Gross, and you can all help us be bailed out. It looks like Val.
I love we're booking tickets, and Katie's like, "But how do I get backstage to meet him?" I'm like, "Katie, it's Canada, not America. We don't like we don't do that here." I'm like, "I don't care. I'll throw money at it." And it's like, "It's not. We don't do it." And she's like, "Oh."
Well, Val is on tour right now and is in Windsor, which is not too far away from Stratford.
Close to Stratford.
Yeah, so you'll have to let us know where you are next, Val. We'll have to stalk you. And if you come anywhere close to Montreal or Boston, we're there. We're there to see you. Yeah.
Windsor, incidentally, is like a good 10 hours from Montreal with traffic. With traffic.
I
think
which
it's
is doable in the world of Canadian driving. So
yeah, that's normal Canadian driving. But I'm like, Val is so close yet so far. Like, it's probably faster for me to fly to across the continent to see you than it is for you to drive and see me here. Yeah.
All right, so
Or
Paul is giving it 5 taters. George also 5. Doc says 4. Lost 1 because the movie made people scared of computers. I'm kind of with you on that. The logic there is sound. The logic.
I remember, and granted, I was quite young when this movie came out. Katie was born.
This is my anniversary movie. So the movie and I are both 40 this year, which is exciting for both the movie and me.
I would have seen this when I was a bit older, but I remember my mom being like to my dad, like, "Andy, are you sure it's not too scary?" And my dad's like, "It's about computer games." Yeah. And my mom's like, "It might be scary because of the Soviets." Yeah, anyways, so it's like,
it is a little scary because of the Soviets. I mean, I'm not gonna lie.
It is a bit scary, but yeah,
because of the Soviets of it all. Oh my goodness.
I do have that very distinct memory. I don't know what you said. You said something earlier in the podcast is like, memory unlocked. Core memory. Like, Andy, is it too scary?
That's
no,
awesome.
But yeah. How many potatoes, Katie?
I went with 5. I know it's very surprising because I only ever rate things 2 or 3, but I thought this one definitely is 5. How can you not? I mean, other than Doc's logic, which I think is sound. I
Also, deleting Canada from NORAD, which I'm like, Canada joined NORAD in 1957, but okay, it wasn't
Maybe
there in
we'll
the
move
80s.
this one down like over here.
We'll hide a potato. But that's just me being like inaccurate.
Yeah, I mean it again. Like it kind of checked all of the potato boxes, right? Like it
did.
It was fun. It was well done. It was accurate. It was well acted. It did really well in the box office. It did. Like they didn't take too many licenses.
I'm just meant about NORAD.
Oh yeah, well yeah.
I'm like, that was a pretty big thing they left out, you know.
Again, I really think that they could have traded out that like I think they were trying to make him French guy.
Yeah, there was that weird that guy in that weird uniform with that big like Hermes white scarf around his neck, and
he was like really inappropriate to that woman. I was like, no, we need to get him out of here.
Has, like, yeah.
Hands to yourself, maybe French guy.
SA
Sorry,
vibes,
France.
dude. No, like, you can back up like 5 sacks of potato pastes away from her. He's like hovering. Ooh, we didn't like him.
Oh, hang on, I gotta try something here. Oh no, I can't grab it easily. Paul was saying that so I use for anyone that doesn't know this, and I assume that most of you do, but we record this podcast with a tool called Ecamm Live, which is one of our all-time favorite tools.
Love it.
If not our favorite tool. And in the newest version of it, you can actually, which we'll have to add in for a future episode, you can actually like have animations to your overlays. So like our little potato guys, we already have the animation where they like drop in from below, but now you can spin them onto the screen and spin them off the screen. That might be really fun for next time. So we'll have to set that up live from Stratford. That may have to happen.
How many potatoes are we going to spin in for Paul Gross and Shakespeare?
Probably 100 or more. I mean, really, we wouldn't be
as
Canadian
many
if
as
we didn't.
We can.
If we didn't do that. Oh my god.
Katie and I also being massive English lit nerds / majors / what we do double major in English lit and like a minor in classics and whatever. Not nerds at all. We love the Bard. He's kind of been our jam since we were little kids. Such weird kids.
Yeah, I'm slowly trying to make my kids crazy / memorize the prologue in Romeo and Juliet. So now every time that we do anything, I start up and I'm like, 2 potatoes, both alike in dignity, in fair Verona, where we lay our scene. 2 children, both alike in dignity. I'm like, they've now heard me say this with like different things so often that by the time that they read Romeo and Juliet, they're going to be like, oh, for the love of God, I can say this out loud in my sleep with my eyes closed. No, they're going to know the whole prologue. It's going to be incredible. So
can't wait till they hit grade 7.
Yeah.
Is it still grade 7 reading Romeo and Juliet?
I don't even know. I mean, for my kids, way younger, obviously.
Yeah,
we've already.
Anyways, fingers crossed.
Yeah,
fingers crossed. There is still Shakespeare in the school system for your children. Come on, America.
Either way, we're gonna.
If not, Angie now will come and visit, and we will do English lit lessons.
Exactly.
They will
exactly.
hate me.
Well, I'm excited to dive into the world of Shakespeare. And technically speaking, even though not a movie, this series aired from 2003 to 2006. So it's still within our time frame of 80s, 90s, and today, which is early 2000s.
Yes. So, it does have an all-star cast. There are some people that you
an
will
all-star
recognize
Canadian cast, yes.
Well, but some of them are really just all-stars. Rachel McAdams is in it.
That's true.
And what's his adorable face from The Marvelous Miss Maisel?
Oh, I couldn't tell you that one. I for shame have not yet seen that one.
It's very Gilmore Girls with the fast talking. I love it. What's his name? Luke Kirby is also in it. He's got a lot of attention recently because of Miss Maisel, but he's also in this, and Paul Gross and a lot of other people that you'd recognize. You'd be like, oh, they're Canadian. They're in everything. Yeah. Actually, I'm pretty sure somebody in this movie, WarGames, was in Slings and Arrows.
Yeah, well,
I recognized him and thought about that.
I have less than a week to watch.
He's one of the MIT
seasons.
nerds. Oh no, that's true. I mean, we could just watch the Lear season, but the Romeo and Juliet season is / the Scotch play season is the best. But
Here we go. Paul says, Paul Gross from Tales of the City leads an outstanding ensemble cast with season 1 guest stars Rachel McAdams, The Notebook, and
there we
Luke
go.
Kirby, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. So yeah, it's a
Thank you,
great
Paul,
one.
for making that really concise. I
Yes.
was just like, dude, and thank you.
It is called Slings and Arrows. There are 3 seasons. Yes, it's Canadian, so it might be slightly harder to find and or stream, but I do know
I'm
that
pretty sure it's on Amazon Prime.
it is on Amazon Prime.
/
so.
Netflix.
Mhm.
It used to be on Netflix for sure. So one or the other. We got you.
All right. You did it. As we like to say, you wasted yet another perfectly good hour hanging out with us. We dive deep into the world of war games. Next week, Slings and Arrows. You can find this podcast, as our friend Doc says, wherever you get your podcast. That's not what he says, but I'm editing it for you. Wherever you get your podcast. We are available on all the different podcast players, including YouTube Music. If you want to hang out in the live studio audience, you are always welcome. We record most Thursday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern. Next week, we're going to be Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern, but you can find all of the replay videos here as well as we do weekly at the same time as this episode, roughly right before we do video shorts as well. So if you're like, nah, I don't have time for a full hour, that's crazy pants, you can just click and watch just the top 3 facts from each movie so that you can feel smart at cocktail parties or Zoom calls. Either, whatever is your jam. so you can hang out and get all of that. And please let us know your favorite movies, and leave us some comments and let us know what you think of the episodes, and share it with a friend, because we'd love to get the word out a little bit more. All right, Doc, where you can find this, where your podcast getting is got. I don't know if I'm cool enough to pull that off, but there it is for my friend Doc Rock.
That was adorably awkward.
Adorably awkward from this nerdy Canadian fake glasses wearing person to everyone out there. Thanks for hanging out as always, Nat, and I'll see you in real life in a couple days.
And thanks everybody for hanging out with us.
We'll see you next week. Bye.